Have you ever said no to a preschooler and then been met with an epic meltdown? Because I know I sure have. This is the second episode in our Behavior Bites series, where we bite into behaviors that challenge us one episode at a time. Today, we're joined again by Dr. Carolyn Bobb-Green, founder of Training You to Succeed. She's going to be sharing all her secrets to saying no to preschoolers without the meltdowns. If you haven't already watched episode 1, you can go back and catch up at any time. And if you're not already subscribed to Elevating Early Childhood, do it now so you'll never miss another episode again. Ready? Let's dive in. So Carolyn, welcome back to our Behavior Bites series.
Hello.
We are so excited that you are here with us again. I can't wait to talk about this topic with you. And this is something I think that all early childhood professionals and even parents are going to want to listen to because it's something we've all experienced. How do we say no to preschoolers without meltdowns? I feel like we need a dun-dun-dun-dun to get there.
Boom, boom.
There we go. Yes, because this is so difficult. They don't like to hear the word no, but sometimes it has to be said. So why do they have a meltdown when we say no to them? Let's just start right there. Why is that?
Because they can't have what they really want. And no one has taught them how to deal with that emotion of rejection. So if no one has told you how to deal with it, you deal with it the best way that you know how, and what has gotten you the attention in the past. And we know when we tell a kid no, and they start kicking and screaming, and we start watching everybody's reaction, and we don't want to be that teacher or that parent with that hollering kid, we end up giving them what they want. So we have told that child, it's okay for you to behave that way. And if I tell you no and you behave that way, I'll give you what you want. Instead of us teaching them how they should react to no and not replying or responding when they throw those tantrums. So we've said it's okay. No, I don't want that. And it's, and we're like, oh, no, stop. And give them exactly what they're asking for.
It's so hard though, because even if we are a trained professional, right? And I'm a trained professional, you're a trained professional. Even if we know that saying the word no can trigger them, it's still the first thing that always comes out of our mouth. It's really hard to not say it, especially when they're doing something that's just like, wow, really horrible, right?
And then this is the funny thing. Usually with a toddler or a preschooler, one of their first words is no. And you have to ask yourself, why is that one of the first words that they say? Because that is what they hear. We're constantly like, no, don't do that. Stop. No. You know, my nephew was trying to get on the treadmill the other day, and his mom was like, no. And I'm like, but that's going to make him say no. And he's going to tell you no. And then you're already teaching him that negative connotation of no, instead of telling him what he can do. So you can say no without saying no. And that is the art of early childhood, because that no, that word triggers people. Imagine you as an adult, somebody telling you no, you can't do something. You start to feel a certain way in the inside, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, you can't park here. No, you can't have that.
Exactly. That's very true. We don't like to hear the word no either. And it's interesting because sometimes kids can hear the word no, or you can say the word no rather, and they hear maybe.
Not right now.
Yes.
Later.
Yes. I think that's what they think sometimes is when they hear the word no, they think there's a chance. And if there's even a remote chance they can get what they want, they're going to keep going down that road, that meltdown road, because they're like, yeah, she says no, but she means maybe. And so what she really means is I need to throw a tantrum or a meltdown so that ultimately we can get to what I want. And I'm using this scenario in my head. I live in an area, Carolyn, where there's only one grocery store, just one, in a great distance. So everyone is there. It's always busy. And so whenever I go, there's always a child having a meltdown in the grocery store. It's just a fact because it's the only game in town, right? And I was there the other day, and this child was wanting something in the grocery store that she wasn't going to get, or the mother didn't want her to have. And so she was going to ramp it up. And this child was like 5 years old. She was going to go there with yes. And she was going to full out lay on the floor because she wanted this thing. I don't even know what it was. And I said, let's see where this goes. You know, I'm not the kind of person that would intervene because it's not my child and I didn't want to be judgmental, but they ended up in the parking lot at the same time I was in the parking lot. And this child was just going and going and going. And she was ramping up. Closer they got to the car, she was really going to give it her all because this was the grand finale. And when they finally got to the car, the mom turned to her and said, okay. And I was like, that is the exact outcome that she wanted. Yeah. And I was like, Mom could have said that way back in the beginning, 20 minutes ago.
As early professionals, children behave differently with us than they do with their parents. So that's number one. So she probably wouldn't have taken it that far with me or you because she knew it wasn't going to go far.
Exactly.
And two, I tell adults, that child has only been on this earth for 2 years. I've been on this earth almost 40 plus years, okay? I am more stubborn and I have more resistance than anything. How do you let a 2-year-old wear you down? All you have to do is just stand stern and smile and go. Are you telling me that a 2-year-old controls you that much that you give up? I've been here. I have shoes older than you. Come on now. So we have to stand stern and the outcomes that we want for that child, because what that mom, any early childhood professional or teacher has done when they give in to that, we have validated that is the behavior that is acceptable. And even more so at the core, and this is something that I try to teach teachers, parents, anyone that I come in contact with, is that children behave the way that they either think is acceptable or they fill in or they've seen something that have resulted in them getting what they want, so they behave that way. We do not take enough time as professionals to teach children how to deal with their emotions. And I know that it's because teachers are dealing with their emotions, parents are dealing with their emotions, but if you don't teach your child how to respond to no, if you don't show them, give them an example, teach them a lesson about if you feel this way when someone tells you no, here's what you do. So it's just like a person honking. My mom never told me what to do when a person honks at me on the freeway. So I could have, cut them off and did that, or I could do what I seen on TV, which is to give them the bird, right? Like do what people do, or say bad words or have road rage. If my mom has set me down and says, Carolyn, there's going to come a time when somebody's going to cut you off on a highway and you're going to get upset. Here's what I need you to do. Because it can lead to so many different things. You can get into an accident. That person can get upset. It can lead to some type of violence. I need for you to count to 3 and take a really deep breath and say, you know what? That person may be having a bad day. So I need to just let it roll off my back. Carolyn, you are in control of your emotions. Do not let that person control you. If we start being very strategic about that with our children from the time that they're toddlers on up, teaching them how to respond to different types of things when they start showing us behaviors that's not acceptable, I guarantee you some of those tantrums would be cut out. And I've seen it happen in my classroom. I've seen it happen with my own children, and I've seen it happen with my teachers. And so we don't take the time to define no, what no means. We don't help them understand that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset and still want it. But here is the reaction or the behavior that you need to display. And here's what you can't display whenever you're upset.
How would we reframe it then? So if we do say no to a preschooler, regardless of, whether they're 3, 4, or 5 years old, 2, 3, 4, or 5, how would we say no so that they didn't have a meltdown? Because I feel like a lot of teachers feel like, well, I can't say no to them because my director says I can't. That's not a word that we use. I have to do it differently. And so I don't know what to say instead. And, what do we do? How do we move forward?
A lot of times you don't say no because it is a very strong word. It has a negative connotation, like saying stop, don't, kids just kind of get like stuck in the moment. So a lot of times, here's what I explain to my colleagues and anyone who works with young children. So explain to them, hey, that is not a safe thing for you to do right now, but here's what you can do. So let's just say they want to go and play in the sensory table, the water table, and that is already full. There's already 2 kids over there, and they want to go, and they're trying to go over there. Instead of you saying, no, you can't do that, go find something else. Go to them and say, hey, there's 2 kids in the center. If there's 3 kids, it is going to get a little messy, but I know you enjoy that water play. So here's what you can do until the water play. And Miss Carolyn, I'm going to have my timer right here. And as soon as it goes off, you're going to be able to go over there. But for right now, how about you try this activity? And if the kid goes, no, I don't want to try that activity. Okay, you don't want to try that. So show me something besides that you can do until that's available. And then the more you encourage that and you tell them, hey, but if you are not going to work with me, how can I help you to get to that center? So let's work together and figure out what can be done. And a lot of times talking them down and distracting them and getting their mind off of that will help them to kind of better process the fact that they can't do that right now, or that is not something that's an option right now, but here is an option for you. And if you don't want to take my option, come on, let's find out together what option that we have. And that's that critical thinking skills that children need to be able to have, that problem solving skill. And a lot of times we take that away by telling them, no, go do this, instead of having that much needed conversation. Developing those communication skills, those critical thinking skills is so vital to building emotionally competent children. And those tantrums come because they don't have that balance with their emotions, because no one's taught them how to react to different situations.
Very, very powerful stuff. I think that one example in my own life I can use to kind of transfer that information is my nephew was here last summer, and we decided to do a lemonade stand, like a real one, right? Like you can do a pretend one in your classroom, and that's all fine and good. And it's kind of a controlled environment, and the kids, they're going to play together, but there's no like real money changing hands, right? So let's put real money into play and real customers, and things get a lot stickier. And Vanessa was in a sticky situation because my nephew wanted to charge $12 a glass for lemonade. He's 5, so he didn't know, but that's because he realized that he wanted to buy something, and he thought, okay, if I want to get this thing, I need money to buy it, and so I want to people to pay me $12 for a glass of lemonade. And so I was like, no, you can't do that. And that was my mistake. I was like, we need to charge like, $1 or something, something reasonable. And it was a battle. It was a battle of the wills, and it was not pretty. And there was a meltdown on both parties' parts. But thankfully my and he's not my student, he's my nephew, so the relationship is different, but his father is really good at handling, because he loves to go there when someone says no to him. And his father is very good though at avoiding the meltdowns, because what his father did was say, well, we could do $12, we could do $1. He's like, well, let's do some research and let's find out. And so he made it into like this activity where, we were talking about how many glasses we would need to sell at $1. And, he just broke it all down like into math, because he's a math guy. And my nephew was like, okay, all right.
Distraction.
And he turned it into another activity entirely. And then he was fine with it. And so we're going to try it again this year and see how it goes now that he's 6. But anyway.
That is a perfect example, because the same thing happens in the classroom, whether it's your niece, your nephew, your child. It all has to be handled the same way so that as a community we can come together and solve this problem as a whole. So by him doing that with your nephew, even though that was his son and that was your nephew, that's still giving him those tools that he needs to be able to control his emotions whenever he's told no. Kudos to dad and Aunt Vanessa.
Yeah. So let's translate that into the classroom, though. So let's say maybe the kids are playing at the pretend lemonade stand and everybody wants to be the one to slice the lemons because they are Velcroed. They're those little Velcro ones that, you slice. It's very fun for some reason to slice the Velcroed lemons. And let's say everyone wants to do that, but you really only have like 4 lemons that do that. And you only have like 3 knives. And so you say to one of the children, it's not your turn yet. So basically you're saying no. Oh, how do we channel that then?
Well, one, with you knowing that you only have those limited resources, you really have to set that environment, those restrictions up even before they even get into the center. So that will kind of reduce some of the tantrums because you've set that environment. But let's just say Miss Vanessa wants to be the one to slice the lemons now. And Miss Carolyn is like, okay, Miss Vanessa, but I have Miss Crystal over here already slicing the lemons. And so what I can ask Miss Crystal, are you ready to allow Miss Vanessa to slice the lemons? And Crystal's like, well, no, Miss Carolyn, I'm not done. I still wanna slice them. So I'm gonna go to Miss Vanessa. I'm gonna say, Miss Vanessa, so what are some things that you can do to help until it's your turn to slice the lemons? And Miss Vanessa's like, I'm not having that. I want to slice those lemons like I said that I wanted to slice a few minutes ago. And so then she starts to get agitated. So then as a teacher, what I do is I give her some options and ask her what she feels and what she thinks about what we can do until the timer goes off and Miss Crystal is done slicing those lemons. And by then the kid is distracted. They're like, well, you know what? I can wipe down. You can wipe down, you can fold, you can go wash the knives out in the sink and pretend to wash them out so that they can be ready for when you get ready to slice lemons. And so you have this conversation to kind of deter their mind from having that tantrum and to start finding solutions to get them ready for waiting until their turn, because I'm not really telling you no. I'm telling you not right now at this time, and it's not a definite. So there are some situations where no is no, and you have to explain why and how you got there and have them reason with you to find something to replace what they really want.
Yeah, so you kind of channeled my disappointment into what else could you do instead until it's time. I like that. One of the things I used to do was put a sign-up sheet. Like maybe if I found that the lemons, this would be for older children who were pre-K 4, right, or older. But if the lemons were the hot ticket in town, which they have been in my experience, those stinking Velcro lemons. Well, I guess it's just really fun to pretend to chop something in half, and then it really does come in half. But anyway, is to put a little sign-up sheet there and say, okay, everyone seems to want the lemons, so let's put this little sign-up sheet. You put your name, and then when you come to have a turn, you get to cross your name off the list, and you can visually track and see who's next. And also, just the act of writing their name is kind of a distraction, right? From the thing that has worked for me in pre-K 4.
And then toddlers, the same thing. I used to have a turn can, and I had a can that had all the kids' name in it, and then I had turn. And if you wanted a turn, you would take your popsicle stick and put it in the turn can. And then I would go over and pull names from that turn can, and then you had a turn. So even for kids who can't write their names yet, but can recognize their name, or if they have a popsicle stick with their picture on it and their name on it, you can still do this with younger kids as well until it's their turn.
Yeah. When I was in Head Start, we had clothespins for each child with their name on it and a little sticker to represent and they would put their clothespin on this is all DIY stuff back before the internet started, but I would have little pieces of cardstock or poster board with little dots, like sticker dots on it, and they would put the clothespins on. That worked really well for many years for me.
It still works. I tell my teachers that it still works. Kids, they don't know that things have advanced like that, but I still am a clothespin and popsicle stick girl, and it works.
It does, and the physical act of putting their clothespin on the dot I think is a really good visual to help remind them, like, okay, there's only 3 dots
Available
here.
left, yes.
And let's put your clothespin on one. Now there's 2 dots left. Okay, now the 4th person comes over and says, I want to slice lemons. You can say, well, we only have 15 minutes left in center time. And, so there's 2 other people here. And, it's a great way to like problem solve a little bit with your kids,
Yes, very much so. And that's and nowadays in the classroom, there's so many different options as opposed to saying no in there. I have right now in our after school room where we have set up, and these are older. These are like 6 and 7 year olds, 5 and 6 year olds. They have a waiting room. So if they can't find a center that they want to go to, they have a little waiting area that they go, and it has books and it has like note journals and clipboards. One of the classrooms call it a relaxation island. And let's just say that kid really wanted to get those lemons and they want you to know that they're next. They would go into the waiting room and get a clipboard. And I would always tell them, if you choose to go into the waiting room and do a quiet activity, it will give you first picks to do the activity. But if you choose to throw yourself down and cry, it's going to make you have to go second or last because we have to wait for you to finish your meltdown. And they would be upset. And I would tell them this. And this is something that we have to make sure. You're upset. You're mad. You really wanted this. You may even feel sad inside. And it is okay to cry. It is okay to cry in the waiting room. It is okay to say that I really want that. But what is not okay is to kick and scream and hurt and break things because you feel that way. And so I've given them permission. You have permission to be upset, but you have to be upset. You can't be upset like this. You can't look like this when you're upset. But you can go in the waiting room and you can cry. You can journal. You can draw a picture. You can even pretend to make a phone call and talk to whoever you want to on the play phone and tell them how upset you are. But what you cannot do and what is not acceptable is doing this. But here are a list of things that are acceptable. And every time that child always chose to do something that's going to get them closer to slicing those lemons, but you have to explain that. You have to tell them that.
I like the idea of letting them know what they can do. So there's so many tools out there these days that didn't exist back in the day, right? Like the pinwheel. I love the pinwheel. So if you're feeling angry and sad and upset and you're breathing really hard like this, let's try and blow this pinwheel. This is an option, right? These are some options. These are tools that can help children channel that upset, the behaviors they would usually exhibit during a meltdown. If you feel like you need to hit something or squeeze something really hard, here's what we have for you. Like, these are things you're welcome to squeeze these. You're welcome to punch this pillow, or you're welcome to blow on this pinwheel. There's so many options. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wouldn't overwhelm them with them, but like there's things that you can use in your class.
Yes, that can be put into your waiting room or your relaxation island, as opposed to telling them, no, you can't do this, and then just letting them fall out and walk over them and don't address the behavior. Those tools are very important to have, and whatever area of the room that you feel is needed for that child to get away and express those emotions.
And I think the dollar store is the best place to find it.
I still use a squishy ball to this day. I have one in the car.
Yeah. Yeah. They have these little stress balls at Dollar Tree, or they used to. They have little faces on them. I'm like, well, thank you. That's exactly what I need for my, my Zen den, or whatever you want to call it. So I have those. I've collected little things here and there that you can use. A pinwheel. Oh my gosh, those are so cheap. They have them in the spring at the grocery store for $1, and I stock up on them just in case they destroy them. They're super cheap, so things like that. This is what you can do if you're breathing really heavily, if you're crying and you're sad. Mm-hmm. Here's, all kinds of things that they can do instead. And of course, there's some kids that none of that is going to appeal to them, and they would rather just be on the floor. And those
are what was that kid?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's some kids that aren't going to be placated by any of that. But it is, like you said, okay to show emotion. And these are the emotions that they're having, but it's not okay to, hurt someone or throw a chair. That's what I hear from teachers a lot. And so-and-so threw a chair at me. I've had chairs thrown at me as well, and I think it's always important to to take a deep breath and also think about, maybe there's other things going on, that this really isn't about the lemons. Like it could be, it could be about some much, much, much greater issue than that. And also not to take it personally. That's what I always
sometimes it's not about us. It's really not. And sometimes that child doesn't even know what it's about. They just have this feeling, they could be going through things at home. Something could have happened on their way to school. I tell this infamous story all the time about me wanting to wear a red dress to school, but my mom dressed me in blue. And when I went to school, oh my God, I was trouble. And it was nothing that teacher could do or say that was going to take me off there, because all I wanted to do was wear that red dress to school. And it took, someone actually sitting down with me much later on, after this behavior continued to happen over time, and I was deemed a problem child or a challenging child. And back then they had another word for us, and it wasn't challenging. And so it wasn't until someone sat down and taught me how to process my feelings and how to express that differently, that I realized that I got along a lot better in life by expressing how I feel in a different manner compared to what I was doing before. And that totally shifted how I behaved the rest of the time I was in school. And if someone had sat down with me that first time and found out that it was all because I wanted to wear a red dress, it had nothing to do with not wanting to follow directions or being challenging. It was just I was disappointed and upset. And so because I was mad, I wanted to make everybody have a miserable day like my day. And if we got down on a child's level and really talked to them to find out what the core of the problem was a little more often, then a lot of times these behaviors could be eliminated in our classroom.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can certainly think of many instances in my career when it was nothing about a child wanting to ruin my day or make me miserable, or, it wasn't about that. I mean, it's many other things. I mean, there's so many different things. It could be, they could be tired. They could be hungry. There's so many different things that could be going on that we just don't know because we're not with them 24/7. And even if you are, that doesn't mean you know the exact reason. I'm sure the mom in the parking lot at the grocery store had no idea why her child was doing this, and there was probably a reason. It could have been anything for all we know. Maybe she had a bad day at school or anything. So, Carolyn, I think that we've got a lot of good information here. Let's review a little bit. How can we say no to preschoolers without meltdowns? If we had to encapsulate everything that we said in this last episode for somebody, how would we do that so that it would just be a short, succinct, little brief thing?
Well, how you say no without the tantrums? Well, the first thing that we talked about, and to kind of like bring it all together, is making sure that we are giving options and taking the time to speak with the child and give them some critical thinking as to what they can and cannot do, as opposed to just giving them a no and expecting them to deal with the situation and carry on.
Right.
The second part of that is teaching them how to accept and understand their emotions and feelings so that their behavior is not resulting in a tantrum, but they know that it's okay to cry and to feel upset, but giving them tools to kind of like vent that anger and frustration out, so that it doesn't end up in a tantrum.
I do like the way that you said that. Options. It's always good to have options for children and to channel. I like to use the word channel. I just feel like, you're kind of guiding them, right? That's what we do as teachers. We're guiding them towards what is appropriate and what they can do rather than what we tell them they can't do, right? Yeah.
And there's so many ways to say no without saying no, and explaining to them what the no actually means and why behind it. Because it's like, you said no, but why did you say no? Like, explain to me. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
So we have to take time to do that.
Yeah. And I think it's super important for the young children that we have in whether that's our own children or in the classroom, in whatever situation we work in. But thank you so much, Carolyn, for having another episode, a fantastic episode of Behavior Bites with us here in Elevating Early Childhood. Remind us, in case we have new viewers or listeners, because we do have new viewers and listeners every week, tell us where we can continue the conversation with you if somebody listening out there is like, I like what that Carolyn has to say. I need to ask her a question.
All right. My name is Carolyn Bobb-Green, and I am the owner of Training You to Succeed. And you can find me on Instagram at Training, the letter U to Succeed, on Facebook and on YouTube. Every week on Facebook, we do something called Hot Topics that are free to teachers. And if you want certification, we have a step that you can also gain CEUs and clock hours as well for those topics. And every year we have an annual in-person conference and virtual conference. All that information can be found at trainingyoutosucceed.net or on our Instagram page at Training to Succeed, and the link is in the bio.
Yes, and we will have a link to Training You to Succeed in the show notes below the video as well. So thank you, everyone out there listening and watching. Until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin, and this is Carolyn Bobb-Green. If you think these videos are valuable, you have got to come check out the Teaching Trailblazers program. Teaching Trailblazers is the place for teachers like you to get the professional development resources and support you need to thrive. It's where you can learn relevant, life-changing best practices with professional development created specifically around the challenges early childhood teachers face. It's where you can get access to a complete research-based pre-K curriculum that you can use either to supplement your existing curriculum or use on its own to get 100% of your students kindergarten ready by the end of the year. And it's where you can hang out and connect over all things early childhood with other teachers just like you and me. It's my favorite place on earth, and it will change your teacher life, I guarantee it. Come join us at teachingtrailblazers.com to get more information and apply today. That's teachingtrailblazers.com. I can't wait to see you there.